Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today we hit the ground running with a double champion fight. I mean, granted, just goblins, but still. And then beyond that, we're still making our way north. Through this mountain range might be slightly problematic, but worst case scenario, we can always detour into Loundstat instead of heading straight for Damwald. That said, let's get started, shall we? You know, I really wanted to say something clever about Drozub the Insidious or Vlixix the Stabber, but I've got to say those are some tough names to work with. Spying another group of goblin opportunists, the raiders swiftly moved to intercept. Finding their way into a slightly advantageous position, halfway atop a rise before the goblins realized what was happening. But, to their surprise, two goblins in particular, chests festooned with silvery medals, clearly highly decorated amongst their kin, swiftly began to gesticulate, barking shrill commands as they coordinated a counter-assault. One even so bold as to lead from the front. And apparently the raiders were so flabbergasted by this whole display that they just kind of forgot how to fight for a moment. Though Diego was quick to remind them, dashing one of the goblin skirmishers back down the slope. Sigmar rushing forward, missing the surprisingly agile Vlixix the Stabber, but killing the unfortunate Gobbo behind. Verlin held, eyeing the wolves working their way round, warily. His own peculiar goblin pig sticker held at the ready. And Vlixix's luck finally ran out. A hefty swing from Seymore catching him off guard, cracking into his shoulder and popping his arm out of joint. Cetrus promptly pressed the advantage. A second strike, shattering his other arm. Vlixix uttered a shrill cry, calling for support. Drozub pushing in, only to find his own advance halted by Giannis halfway up the slope. The goblins tried to regroup, arrows pattering across the raider formation, riders swooping in from the sides. But, with the initial surprise having now worn off, the raiders swiftly turned the tides. An ambusher agonized as he found himself speared. The flankers flooding in, too late now to do much good. Two neatly clustered shots sheared through the lead rider's chest, Wolf veering wildly as reins were pulled tight. Rook stepped in. Pike planted, Wolf and rider both impaled upon the set blade. Diego kicked Vlixix off a nearby cliff, then wheeled about, blocking the flankers on north. Giannis slashed out to one side, catching another skirmisher across the face. Green flesh paired to bloody bone. A blast from up top. The defaced goblin disintegrated. A second blast. The last rider on south stumbled. Seymore pushed north, reinforcing Diego's position. A mighty swing from Cetrus, another flanker fell. Wolf and Rider both killed in one fell swoop. Mal moved to block the last rider on south. Verlin moving in to finish Flick 6. Though the Goblin Champ wasn't about to go down without a fight, as futile as it might be, Val hucked his last javelin, another ambusher impaled, and then turned his ire towards Rider on north. Axe finding its way through a goblin neck. The rider rushed in, intent on exacting revenge. Promptly pincushioned for his trouble. Bowman barely breaking stride as he turned and shot down another ambusher as well. Alois took careful aim. And just like that, Flick 6 was no more. The rest of his men not far behind, as evidenced by another random kill. Sensing their impending victory, the rest of the raiders swiftly pushed up, blocking the inevitable attempts to flee. Drozeb the Insidious found himself facing an ever-expanding raider line. A slash from Giannis, carving a shallow but painful gash across his chest. And still he fought on. Even as an errant axe tore away his leather cap, scoring the scalp beneath. Another blast from up top, and the ambusher at his back was annihilated, exploding limb from limb, scattered across the landscape like so much fresh fertilizer. Another well-placed shot, and the final ambusher fell, impaled on yet another black-fletched arrow, and full focus fell upon the unfortunate Drozeb. The final avenue of escape cut off. The goblin officer finally surrendered to his fate. Pinned in place by Sigmar's blade, body half split. Giannis wasted no time in finishing him off. A sweep of his curved cleaver. And the goblin legend was no more. Okay, you know what? Normally goblin weapons aren't really worth keeping, but that perfidious windblade, almost worth using. The other one's definite sales fodder, though. And as for the rest, let me go ahead and dump some foodstuffs real quick. Yeah, that's fine. And with that bloody business done, the raiders swiftly rolled the carved-up corpses, gathering what few meager trophies were worth keeping, and then pushed on. Civilization awaited, albeit on the far side of an unfamiliar mountain range. The raiders were a bit mystified as to why their captain was so insistent on taking such a roundabout route. But he simply shrugged and nodded towards the anatomists. They had something up their sleeve, but whatever it might be, they didn't seem ready to share just yet. The dreaded rooks. Got a fairly convenient pass here. Let's hope this funnels us up towards Damwald. I mean, we're doing okay on food. It's just, at this point, repair tools are becoming a bit of a problem. So we do want to hasten the rest of our journey. Hey, nice. All right, perfect. With the Cloud Crest Mountains finally behind them, the raiders found themselves in the final stretch. The glowing lights of the city of Damwald visible off in the distance. Though in their haste to sleep in a proper bed again, the raiders stumbled straight through a crudely camouflaged camp. Though initial alarm was indeed palpable, it swiftly passed as the raiders realized that the burly figures emerging from these grass-shrouded lean-tos were not the orcs they had become accustomed to fighting, but rather simple primitive Northmen. Certainly dangerous in their own right, but a pale shadow of the Celadon Scourge. Honestly, this will be such an easy fight, I'm almost tempted to skip it, but it is a camp, so odds are we'll find something halfway decent, even if it's just trade goods or treasure. The raiders, startled at first, swiftly fell back, falling into formation as they invited their equally off-guard foes to advance. And, as they inevitably did, the raiders unleashed hell. Rassel catching the first across the face. Diego blocking off another. Random stepped up, sensor swinging lazy circles overhead. Sigmar shearing through another's bicep. Giannis hacked off a hooligan's hand. Seymore hammering another's humerus. Cetrus claimed first kill. Hammer catching one full on in the forehead. Trip darting in afterwards, dagger digging deep in another's face. Bowman clipped an ear. And the throng of thralls finally started pushing back. At least, as best they were able. The raiders really had no difficulty in turning aside their enthusiastic but awkward attacks. Trip took a knee. And random swept the line. Corpses piled like cordwood. Diego dispatched the Dragon north. Tommy and Rassel double-teaming the one on south. Arrow giving two more the shaft. Rook rushed the second to last, running him through. And that was that. The final foe barely had time to react as he found himself veritably dogpiled by these figurative dogs of war. But not the literal dogs of war. That would maybe be a bit too cruel. Might as well make it quick and clean. Relatively speaking. Oof. There we go. Yeah, some extra surplus pain with the broken fingers, but thankfully Giannis was quick to top him off. Hey, 2 treasure items. I'll take that. Though not much else of note. Yeah, nothing worth dropping stuff over. The tools are tempting, but we can just buy more. We're just outside a major trade route. Right over yonder. Let's go settle in. Huzzah! Hey, hunting season too. Ideal time to stock back up on food. Ooh, plus a potentially useful rumor. A famed stolen weapon in a forest outpost out west. No need for the taxidermist. Alright, give me 1 sec to lighten our load. I'll probably hold on to the trade goods and treasure items. I don't think prices are high enough to justify liquidating those just yet. But we will dump the excess armor and weapons. Those sell at a much reduced rate anyway, so not really worth cluttering up the cart. 1 sec. And we're back. A few thousand gold richer. We did hold on to our treasure items and trade goods, though we still have like 50 open slots. Yeah, we're fine, as long as we don't stray too far. And, you know, I figured since we're already here, might as well scope out these contracts. Damwald does kind of hate us these days. We could certainly use the rep. A man approaches from the side of the road. He's dressed in a peasant's garb, yet is guarded by 2 well-armed men. He announces himself as a councilman in the employ of Geberd the Wise, a local leader of Damwald. Oh, for a basic delivery. To Tangval. That's, you know, not what we're looking for right now, but that's actually not that far. That might be ideal for later. I mean, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't pay much. That's like a single day's payroll, not even. But if we find ourselves headed for Tangval anyway, might as well. As you take stock of your inventory, a rather well-to-do man spots you and heads your way. He announces himself as also being in the employ of Geberd the Wise, an influential person in Damwald, he stresses, who wishes to talk business. You sigh, letting Rax take over as you head back to Geberd's office. Geberd the Wise looks rather irritated when you enter the room. He wastes no time, stating that Damwald used to have good relations with the barbarians to the north. But I suppose I was just fooling myself to think we could stay on even terms with those savages. He states that they've been attacking caravans, murdering travelers, and attacking homesteads. So I'll treat them in kind. No delivery mission this time, mercenary. Go northwest of here and slaughter their village whole. You willing to do that? You know what, Geb? I think I am. Because that just happens to be the exact direction I was planning to head anyway. In fact, if we're lucky, that might even end up being our famed weapon location. Aw, no. No, still in the right direction, but alas, not on a forest. Though really, honestly, west has no cap, so it could be all the way out to the map's edge. That rumor was so broad as to be almost useless, but you know, maybe we'll get lucky. That said, let's push northwest, knock out this camp, then on to the icy cave. I do want to check out those woods too. Not sure we'll have time for that today, but now I am curious. Odds are certainly against us, but you never know unless you look. Oh, that's right. But because this was uncovered by a contract, it did not count towards our current ambition. We have to come across the camp ourselves, not have someone point us towards it. Which is a bit irritating, but not the end of the world. I think you used to be able to game that, but at some point, I think they changed it. Yeah, we actually just got another bug fix patch for Battle Brothers, 10 years deep, and they're still supporting it. Though I did also notice while I was reading the patch notes, Battle Bros got picked up by Hooded Horse, which I suppose does make sense, considering that Hooded Horse is also helping Overhype Games publish Menace. That does really hype me up for whatever might come next, though. There have been rumblings for a while now that Overhype might start working on Battle Brothers 2 once Menace is fully rolled out. And generally speaking, Hooded Horse has really pretty consistently impressed me with their ever-growing stable of strategy games. You find the barbarian village squatting in the snowy wastes. It couldn't have been there long. It's mostly tents, and the tops of them don't carry much snow. They must set up for a time, then get back on the road, either to keep hunts fresh, or to avoid retribution. What a shame they failed to do the latter. Time to go deliver. And here we go. The bold barbarians quickly clocked the company's approach, camped out in a box canyon as they were. Only one way in or out, hard to sneak up on. Though of course that came at some cost. Nowhere to go once things went south. As they almost immediately did. Random catching the first ruffian full on in the throat. Nearly taking his head off, though, for better or worse, he was still alive. For at least another fleeting moment. The rest of the raiders rushed in, doling out ragged wounds. A strike from Seymore, sending one savage stumbling. Cetrus swiftly following through, cracking his collarbone. Valen pinwheeled a primitive about, javelin jutting from his shoulder. Drak hacking off another's arm. And Arrow stringing one out. Alois moved up. The half-decapped hooligan now fully headed off. Rak likewise bisected the briefly stunned barbarian. And the raiders already started setting their sights on the percussive pest in back, knowing it was just a matter of time before he'd beat feet and retreat. Val caught another cad straight through the neck. Random wrecking a rapscallion's ribs. Drak finished off his first foe. Really drinking it in. Rook towing another foe, leaving naught but bloody stub. And Rax racked another. Rushing forward. Pushing past one with skull-capped sledge. Arrow took aim. A noteworthy shot. Drummer snared. A volley on south. A Vulgarian vaporized. The raiders started working their way round. Sights still set on that symbolic savage. Giannis barreled away, giving Val a clear shot. Opening a churl's chest. Another shot from Arrow, this time creasing an ear. A few more beats, and then blood ran thin. The drummer dropped. And the raiders made short work of the rest. Alois executing one. And then another. Primitives pulped at point-blank range. The final foe finally faltered. Footing unsteady as he sought his escape. A futile effort, of course, but he could hardly be blamed. Simple human nature. Which might work for a while, but... only to a point. Level up for Seymore, fantastic. I think he's our last to hit level 7. And not much in the way of loot, but that's hardly a surprise. This close to town, we were unlikely to find anything of note. Let's go ahead and tag a few items for repair. Eke out a few extra coins. And on to the icy cave. Right after we take care of Seymore, who does hit level 7, which means he's now a full-on battle-forged. That'll pair quite nicely with his famed plate. As for stats... once again, flubbed that melee roll, but, you know what? I think we can live with that. We'll double up on defense, and then we'll grab that fatigue. Give ourselves a little extra wiggle room for a proper helm. I will say, I'm still on the fence as to whether or not we're going to stick with that mace. That's a maybe. That's why I haven't taken Weapon Specialist yet. I'm mostly keeping an eye out at the moment for any potential famed weapons we find. Man, I do hate breaking up that set, but his current breastplate is just better. And I guess this does kind of match his whole Hedge Knight look. He's a knight in name only, not an actual proper courtly warrior. Anyway, let's go test our stalagmite. With a brutish boar is dead and buried, the anatomist finally saw fit to reveal the raiders' true final destination. A peculiar cave they had passed once, in weeks long past. Earmarked for investigation by other agents, but now requiring a heavier touch after none of those had returned. Following the anatomist's directions, you discover a cave in the ice, with its maw shielded by a gate of thick icicles. Looking through the icy bars, you find the cave quickly declines down a steep slope and toward what may be an underground riverbank that is long since frozen. Something is huddled beside it, hitting the ice with a pickaxe over and over again. The wind whistles as it grates against the teeth of the cave. You call out to the huddled man, but there is no response. It will take some time to chop through this thick ice and get in there. Fortunately, one of the sellswords reports that there may be a rear entrance. It is blocked just as well, but a strong enough man just might be able to squeeze through and face any dangers within. Rax, you're as strong a man as I've ever seen, and twice as slippery. You want to work your way around? Rax nods and heads off while you and the rest work on the front of the cave. You knock a few of the thick icicles out, letting you see into the cave with better eyes. Just as you do, Rax comes tumbling down an adjacent slope and lands right in the middle of the cave and slides across the frozen river and rides up its embankment. He hops to his feet and dusts himself off with a childish grin. In a flash, the huddled man slams the pickaxe into the ice with unhinted power, and the shards splinter from one side of the embankment to the other. The clank of the metal and shattered ice reverberates as though lightning itself had struck. Now you can finally see the stranger. He is a barbarian, shelled in broken armor that rattles as he moves. The icy walls mirror his step, scattering his presence all around the cave in transient sheens. Jittery and juddering, his walk is seemingly going backwards, despite his advance, as though his shadow were his true self and his flesh the afterimage. Despite being in a cave, his loud voice echoes not at all. An interloper in my midst, a mere moment from the mist. These things I shall not miss. He approaches the sellsword like a cold spider unfurling from its trapdoor. You see that his face is half frozen, and a wry smile squeezes across the half that could still be called flesh. I long to leave this body, my dear fighter. Will you help guide me out and to something higher? You've got this, Rax. Just hold him off. We'll be right there. The fearsome foe jutted forward, icy blue eyes gleaming. And Rax reacted much as he always did. Axe biting deep. A frozen nose scattering across the frosty terrain. To his surprise, the frozen flesh began to reseal before his eyes. The clash of cleaver clattering across his chest. But undeterred. A chilling shriek as the figure split in twain. And this time it did not rise. Frozen Bloodthirster. You know, I'm not sure that's all that competitive. I'll have to do a side-by-side with Drax Scimitar. Rax cuts the madman down, then to pieces for good measure. His chest armor shatters and flies off his body, chunks of plate spinning and warbling into the air, and yet tethered together by some strange blue tendrils. Your men finally break through the icy cavern's entrance and slide down the declination. Rax is quite all right, nodding smugly as he slings his blade. Just another crazy fuck, Captain. You crouch beside the body. Ice contorts half the flesh, twisting it into nubs of black, and what isn't frozen is flaked by strangely sparkling rime. Despite his grisly state, the madman died with a wild grin still on his face. The eyes are a bright blue, and you see yourself in their gaze, a faceless silhouette. And then the color slowly slips away. Not like you've seen before, but as though someone were dragging a curtain through a window, slowly sucking all color right into the sockets. The corpse grins at you, but you refuse to believe that is what you saw. One of the men, Eerie, the company blacksmith, picks up the madman's bizarre armor and holds it at length. What do you figure this is? The question is no doubt aimed at his academic peers, but you look nonetheless. The plates dangle from one another by some strange blue gelatin, and the insides of the metal slats are coated in bubbling, twirling blues, as though it were the work of some celestial blacksmith. It is cool to the touch and gives beneath the slightest push of your finger. You've never seen or felt anything like it. But the armor itself is currently in an unusable state. You have the goop in the armor put into inventory, scour the cave for more goods, of which there are none. Before you leave the cave, you glance at the corpse one last time. You think you saw it move again. But surely it is the cold of the frozen north that is playing tricks on you. As you depart the cave, a local northerner covered in bear furs stands across the company. He looks at you and then the cave entrance. He asks, "You speak the southern or native tongue?" Keeping your guard, you confirm the former. He nods. "And what did you see in that cave? Did you see it?" You tell him you found nothing, only a madman. The stranger smirks. "A madman. A madman, that is what you think you saw. It is within us all to speak warily of the unnatural, but not within us to recognize when nature herself takes a step back. Horrors are easier said than seen. That was no ordinary man, you fool, but the Egerak, a transient spirit that shifts from one vessel to another. No one really knows what it looks like. The whole world is simply a series of masks, and it will happily go from one to the other, usually taking the shape of animals, sometimes a man if he is so weak. It is a being of absolute malice. It cannot be killed. No, it sees death, even its own, as entertainment. It remembers those who escape it. It remembers those it wishes to play with. I pray you've a face worth forgetting." You put your hand on the pommel of your sword and tell him that whatever mysticism and myth-making he's got left he can keep to himself. You saw the madman in the cave, and that's all he was. A man. The stranger nods again and backs off. "As you wish, stranger. May you travel well." Yeah, I'll certainly see what I can do. A bit odd that we're so stubbornly skeptical given some of the other things we've encountered during our travels, but just how it goes with some folks. Myself apparently included. If nothing else, you can imagine it's certainly got the anatomists a titter. And yeah, I was pretty confident Rax would be able to handle this. Dude's a beast. Not, of course, that this was the actual legendary encounter. This was simply an intermediary step at best. Sort of the testing grounds to see if you're ready for the real thing. The Egerak was essentially trapped in that icy cave, stuck in that half-frozen body, buried alive. And for better or worse, we've now let it loose. I'm sure it'll be fine. We've dealt with legendary foes before. What's the worst that could happen? Right? Back me up here. Annie? Rev? Anyway, like I said, for better or worse, we've already set things in motion. Just a matter of time before we stumble across the Egerak again. And when we do, we'll be ready. But for now, I do think this makes for a good place to call it. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll take care of some light off-screen bookkeeping. Feed the clouder. You may or may not be able to tell, but I've currently got Ellie crawling all over me. And we will pick up here next time, as we head back to Damwald See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Arrow Bowman, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.